Hello my friend, Steve Dempster, and we are back now with the fourth installment of this small series on kind of how strumming really works. This one's going to be listening intensive and trusting your rhythmic instincts, something probably no one's ever asked you to do because it's there. You just haven't got it exercised enough. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video quite a bit. At the end of it, you will have an approach, your own approach to playing to the backing track that I've provided. You can also get access to that underneath the video in the notes, and the PDF as well. So here's the question that we're trying to explore through this whole series. And it's a question that bugs me so much when I hear it come from a student, but I understand where it's coming from. And it's simply this: hey Steve, I'd like to learn this wonderful song you wrote. What's the strum pattern for it? You have heard me say many times that at the beginning of your guitar studies, you do need some strum patterns just to kind of get things going, expose you to different sounds and different mechanical features of strumming. But the problem is people tend to stay there far too long, and for years their thought process is, when they come across a new tune that they want to play, the first question they always ask is, what's the strum pattern for it? And of course, what do? These days, of course, they'll go right on to YouTube and find somebody that'll show them a strum pattern to play the song. Okay, you can do that. But you can also get addicted to doing that and not use your own experience, your own thinking, your own smarts to be able to come up with your own strumming approach to the song. And that's what we're exploring in this mini-series. So, I'm going to get the backing track ready, I'll get my guitar ready, we'll do some listening, I'm going to ask some questions, and we'll dig right in. Back in a moment. Okay, welcome back. Here we are, ready to rock and roll, so to speak. Let's take a listen to the backing track, and what I've done in the PDF is, and I'll repeat it here on the video, is I've separated what we're going to be listening to essentially into 5 different sections. That way you're not getting too much information all at once, because it can be overwhelming, and you can manage that a lot more easily. Let's take a listen to the track, and certainly if you haven't heard it before, this will all be new. But for those of you that have been following along with the video series, which you can get right up there, this will be old school because it's the only tune we've worked with. So let's take a listen, and then we'll talk. This is all introduction. I've said it many times. Okay, that's as far as we need to get. Basically, section 1. Now, for some of you, you might just be hearing Maybe just a nice song that's unfolding. But for those of you that are listening a little deeper, which is a skill, it's not something I'm expecting you to do, you know, like right now if you've never done it. It is a skill. It can be trained. But there is a lot of stuff going on just in that one section that would completely affect the way I might strum it. What I wouldn't do, and I suggest you don't do it either, is of course ask the question, what's the strum pattern for it? And then I'll give you one. It will be evident shortly that the real answer to that question is there is no particular strum pattern. It varies depending on where you are in the song. If indeed your interest is to strum it in a way that best represents the song. That's a very different approach than just sticking a memorized pattern that's in your muscles and in your nerves and hoping it's going to work. We don't want that. That's the key feature. Okay, so it kind of starts off, again, forget the intro stuff. Once the song kicks into gear, it kind of starts off with what I would consider a bit of a low-level energy. And after a few repeats, I'll point this out to you, it kind of kicks up a little bit in energy. And I'm hearing this. So, you know, as a very crude example, if I were interpreting the first part of the tune, I could do this. Very low in energy. Not an interesting strum pattern in and of itself. But to make the point about energy, okay, I could do that, and then the energy kicks up a little later, and I could do this. Or I might have started with this one to begin with. And if I'm going to kick that energy up at some point, it would go to this. That's not the approach I'm taking with those specific strumming actions. In the end, that's not what I want to do. But I might use that as a framework around which to help me ultimately decide how to strum it. So again, we go back, we listen, and we draw on our knowledge of the three basic strumming mechanisms that I've covered throughout this series. You do have to be able to identify where the pulse of the tune is. We talked about that in video 1. Again, you can get that, go and review that video if you haven't seen it yet. In video 2, we did 2 strums per pulse, and in video 3, we did 4 strums per pulse. Video 1 was strumming with the pulse. So let's explore this first section, and more questions, more listening. Here we go. So where's the pulse? You can see me tapping along there. I might do this. This is very instinctive for most people. Okay. Can I reflect that in my strumming, Steve? Is there any way I can do that? Let's go back and listen again, and I'm not going to play this time. Get the pulse. If you need a math to it, Here's the sound of what will be the snare drum. 2 times that sound is the pulse, and that would be this. Okay, so let's be clear about what you're hearing there. You're hearing some individual string sounds coming out of a guitar, and alongside that, you're hearing what sounds like some kind of strumming. Let's listen again. Get the pulse, get it firmly in your mind, and don't worry about this stuff. Okay, listen. It might take a few listens for you to really open up your ears to be able to pull out the information that you need. But this is a very cool process. You should let this happen, or let it unfold organically. Don't try to force it. But essentially, at that point in the tune, there's stuff that sounds like it adds some beauty, it adds some texture to the piece, but it's not in and of itself indicating stuff that we need to worry about for strumming. In a sense, behind that sound is something closer to this. And it might even be this. The trick is, you have to pick one. The trick is, you have to go in and explore for yourself what you think it is. And trust that what you've come up with is a good starting point for you. I'm going to start with this, because it's not too busy and it's not too not busy, as strumming along with the pulse would be. I hope this is making sense so far. And by the way, this is very challenging to articulate, because this is the kind of stuff that is going on in the minds of those players that probably you all admire. They just hear a tune and they can grab their guitar and they're wailing away at it with no specific instruction on how to strum. They just seem to be able to, in a sense, mimic it. And when I say it, I mean these different energy levels, using different physical strumming motions. Sometimes they'll keep it quite reserved, like this. And maybe at points throughout the tune, they'll kick it up. And once you've made these kinds of decisions, any one of those 3 basic strumming mechanisms can be manipulated to make them sound even cooler. Well, I'll get into that in another series for the time being. So one more listen, and so what I'm going to suggest is, for me anyway, I'm going to do this kind of playing at the beginning of it, and when the energy kicks up a little bit, I'm deciding to double the energy of my strumming. I don't want you to do that just because I did it. I want you to do it because you trust that that's what you're hearing and that's a good solution for now. You may change your mind at some point down the road. It's entirely up to you. And there is no specific strumming pattern per se that dominates that section, which means you have a lot of freedom to really think about how you might want to do that. This is the challenge, my friend, to get you to think musically, not mechanically. Down, 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 up, down. Yes, again, there's a place for it. I don't want it here. I want you to be using your human natural sense of pulse, the steadiness of it, the predictability of it, and matching that or marrying it to what's possible over here using the three basic strumming mechanisms as templates to get started with. And the challenge, as I was trying to allude to earlier, is that this is very much a quiet thing that's going on inside a musician. So it makes it very challenging to articulate it in words without overwhelming you as to what's actually going on. But what's actually going on is, if I can be flippant about it, is I'm just hearing the tune and I'm reacting to the energy of it. And right now, I have 3 standard options that I can use. That's kind of the best way to think about it. One more time. See what you think of this solution. I've got the pulse. Pulse is still there. Okay, that section where I just went, I hope that that's pretty clear to you as to why I'm doing it, because it's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a guitarist to do that. Now that is still within the structure of the pulse. If I move my body to it, da, 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 da. And all of these hits that I'm doing occur at very specific points along that pulse. It's not random. There's no guesswork involved, and it can all be written out, notated, and either in standard notation or even, well, rhythm notation is the best approach in our case right now. And again, you might just feel that. You might just have an instinct for when those things come in, so use that. And develop it, continue to develop it. Essentially, that was the second section of the tune where that stuff happens. And if you needed to put that moment of playing into one of the 3 basic strumming mechanisms, I wonder which one you would choose. Don't be confused by the fact that I did all downstrokes. I could do this. Forget that chord. I could do that. That alone gives it away. That's coming from basic strumming mechanism too. So at some level in my mind, I'm thinking, I can't get that sound from basic strumming mechanism 1 because I'm only limited to hitting a chord or hitting the string, sorry, on the pulse. That's the rule. I'm only limited to that. I can do the upstrokes because I have to in order to do the next downstroke, but I'm never hitting the strings. I'm just coming up to come up so I can hit the strings going down. If I did the same chord motion with number 3, I could pull it off. You could go, instead of, I could do this. Listen to this. I keep the hand moving so I can, I stalled it there. You could do that, even though that's not what's happening in the sound of it. And you wouldn't be wrong, it's just an interpretation. But to be very specific, all we were hearing was just those downstrokes. So, long story short, in section 2 on your PDF and in the backing track, your options are you can play that as you hear it, and most people are kind of good at that. It's natural, it's human. Use that. But even if you are naturally good at it, be aware that it's sitting within a skeleton, so to speak, or it's being extracted from the graph paper of basic strumming mechanism number 2. And instead of doing everything with down and upstrokes, me just decided to artistically play everything with downstrokes. But it's still BSM2. You should sit with that and really dig in and pay attention to it and make sure that what I'm saying right now is making sense to you. I hope it does. So what we should do is we'll come back to the second section. I'll play that through, and then we'll move into the third section. Okay, so let's take a listen to the second section again. I'm just going to snip in at a logical point, and we'll go from there. More questions, more listening. Now we're into the third section. So what I continued with, or in the fourth section, when I continued with this, that stuff is just more of what we did in section 2. That's all it was. Just kind of kick that up a little bit more in section 1. Kick that up a little bit more in energy. I didn't have to do that. I think this is the important thing for you to recognize, that you need to learn to trust your own mind and make some decisions for now. Remember, nothing is set in stone. You are free to come back as you grow in listening skills to change your mind. So you have nothing, absolutely nothing to lose. Is it as quick as going on YouTube or some other site? I'm on YouTube, of course, and having, you know, a whole bunch of other instructors out there just say, hey, you want to play this great tune by Steve? I'll show you the strum pattern for it. I suppose you could just grab a strum pattern and play through the whole thing, but it won't capture the energy of the song, will it? Because in truth, there's kind of different sections in it, and they all deserve their own focal point with regards to how you're strumming. So right now, I'm just going to rewind that. I still say that old technology. And we're going to be entering into a very different section of the tune. And again, we'll listen, we'll talk, I'll ask questions and figure out how we might play it. This is the stuff before where I want to focus. It's not this yet. Okay, a little bit of a funk moment going on in there. Again, if you're listening close enough to the guitar, forget that big thick bass that's going on for the time being. If you're listening to the guitar, I think you'll agree that fundamentally what's happening at that point is this. Now, I need to say this about what I'm doing when I play basically anything down and up, or any kind of strum situation. Almost never will I, or anyone else who plays, when they're doing this down and up business, they quickly learn that not all strums, down or up, are created equal. There are natural sort of accents or emphasis put on certain hits more than others. Or another way to think of it is some hits are de-emphasized while other ones are strongly emphasized. So the difference would be this. Here it is straight through, which I don't want you to do. It's boring. Same thing done with some variation of emphasis. Da, ba, 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 ba. It's exactly the same motion, but it's a completely different feel. That's vibe, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's happening when you're trying to capture the vibe of the tune. It's not always that specific, but that is the essence of it. Why would you do a strum pattern that does this? Trust me, a lot of people would, if in their bones the only strumming experience they've ever had is that. There's not a stitch that's a swing type of feel in that strumming. There is not a stitch of swing going on in that tune. Why would you do it? And yet people do this all the time. They apply the mechanism that they feel most comfortable with on top of the song without regards to whether it actually fits the song, fits the vibe of the song. So what's going on in that funk section, this would be section 4 of your PDF, is something like this. Now, I'm going to do a lot of muting here. This is not a course on how to mute. So you're going to have to bear with me. I'll probably do a video for you a little bit down the way on that. But understand that this is what you're hearing. That's the gist of it. I know that there is a lot going on at that moment that perhaps you're not aware of or comfortable with yet. If you notice, my hand was pumping the chord, my pinky might have been, look, resting on strings to mute things out. I'm also using the back of this hand to mute some stuff out. But fundamentally what's going on is this thing, BSM 3. Listen. You can hear the accenting. Da 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 da. That's the important thing. That you hear that going on. You may not yet have the skill to pull it off yet. In the meantime, while you figure out how to develop and cultivate that skill, you could just do this and do it without accents, but very lightly. I'm still putting accent on it. It's almost natural. You can't help it after a while. Da, 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 da. Right? That's vibe. So far, we have 3 different approaches to our strumming in this tune. One of them, at the very beginning, we're doing a bit of a review now, was just this. And that lasted for a short time, and not far into the song did we transition into that. And why? It feels like the song when I'm doing it, and it's comfortable in my hand when I do it. It fits the tune in every way I can think of. And then in the section we just did, section 4, yes, there are other techniques that have to get added into the mix regarding muting and really clear understanding of where the pulse is and what you can do with each of these hits in terms of creating sound or muting sound. It can seem a bit overwhelming, and it demands its own training. But at least, hopefully, you agree with me that I wouldn't do this to that section. I wouldn't do this to that section. Sorry. It's just not what's there. I wouldn't do this to that section. We're talking section 4 here. Will it fit? Will it sit in the song? Yeah, it will, because you're changing chords at the right time and other instruments are fitting in, and your contribution still works that way. But I'm always imagining that you're the single guitarist at the campfire and you need to pull off the essence of the tune. So you can't rely anymore on drummers and keyboards and bass guitars and other guitars. It's just you. So if you're just going to bring a what I call a canned strum pattern to be played for 3.5–4 minutes over this whole tune, it'll bore people. It will bore you. There's more going on in the song than just a strum pattern. I know I'm belaboring this point, but that's because the culture of guitar is so infatuated with the notion of asking, what's the strum pattern for that song? What's the strum pattern for that song? That is not how it works, except for maybe some of the most simplest types of tunes where you could do a single strum pattern through the whole song. They do exist. In my experience, they're not the norm. I suppose to some extent it does depend on the genre you like to listen to. But even still, if you were, I don't know, playing simple happy birthday tune, you'd want to vary it a little bit. I don't think you want to just play the same strum pattern from start to finish. Hence, there's no one strum pattern. I'm belaboring the point, I get it. After that, after section 4, the 5th section is just more of the same. You're just doing the same stuff, making decisions about how you're going to approach the strumming, and particularly how it's going to end. It just ends with a single A minor hit. So you don't have to overthink that part, but how you come into it, you might want to give that some thought. Do you want to come into the A minor from a low energy or from a higher energy? Things like that. The answer to it will be dependent on how you hear the tune. This is a very short video on a very big topic. I'm not at all suggesting that you should get all of this right now just because you listened to my video, which I thank you for doing. It's a difficult concept to help students with if they are not experienced in reading rhythms. All of these rhythms can be notated down. If you've had no experience in looking at a sheet of music with the rhythm on it and you just play what you see, then your body, your brain, doesn't develop the awareness of multiple types of rhythms that are possible. In lieu of all that, what you've got left is your ear and your mind, your decisions. That's it. And that's what I'm trying to help you with. We're only scratching the surface. If you found this video helpful, if you found the whole series helpful, I'd like you to consider to subscribe to my channel, help me grow this channel. I'm going to be focusing a lot on strumming. I think it's an area that needs a lot more attention than it gets. It's far more complex than most instructors make it out to be. And the next time somebody says, go and watch that video, it shows you the 10 top strumming patterns that you need to know, just bypass that. I know, I said it. Just bypass that. You only need to know about rhythm. You do not need to know a whole bunch of memorized strum patterns. So I hope to see you again very soon as we continue down this journey on strumming and all things rhythm. If you like the video, you know what to do. Subscribe, share, all that beautiful stuff. And hope to see you soon. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. We'll talk later. Bye-bye.